just a minute. Okay, so again this is a very important topic in pediatrics, especially for your exams. In your theory exams, you may get a short note on any vaccine, okay, or even in your clinical exam, practical exam in your final MBBS, you will get vaccine for sure. I mean, you will be given a vaccine, then you will be asked to identify that vaccine, and you will be asked question on that vaccine. Okay. So therefore, you have to know details about some of the common vaccines used in pediatrics. Okay. And yesterday I had shared 2 immunization schedules through your CR. I hope all of you have gone through that. I request at least all of you at least remember the national immunization schedule. Okay. Because IAP immunization schedule is a bit like difficult to remember. So you can remember at least the national immunization schedule. Okay, it's easy and very few vaccines are there, so it is easy to remember. Okay. So in today's discussion, we will be discussing. Actually, this topic is a bit lengthy, so I don't think you can complete in one day. I mean today. So we will discuss half portion today and rest half in next class. Okay. So today we will be discussing about some common terms related to immunization and immunity. Then we will discuss the types of vaccine, what are the various types of vaccines. Then after that we will discuss some individual vaccines one by one, or some commonly used vaccines in pediatrics. Okay. So before knowing immunization, you should know what is immunity. So immunity is defined as resistance of a host to a specific agent characterized by measurable and protective surface or humoral antibody and by cell-mediated immune responses. Okay. Just a minute, I'm getting a call. हेलो, हाँ गुड मॉर्निंग. तुम कहाँ हो अभी? अच्छा, ड्यूटी आओगे? अच्छा, नहीं यार, एक्चुअली पेशेंट का कॉल आया था इमरजेंसी से. मैं एक्चुअली क्लास ले रहा हूँ स्टूडेंट्स का, तो अभी जस्ट कुछ देर पहले कॉल आया था एक इमरजेंसी से. एक पेशेंट है वहाँ पे फीवर क्लिनिक में. ओ अच्छा, ठीक है, फिर मैं जाकर देख लूँगा. So immunity is defined as resistance of a host to a specific agent characterized by measurable and protective surface or humoral antibody and by cell-mediated immune responses. Okay, so I think you have you know all these things from your microbiology knowledge. In microbiology, you might have studied about all this immunity and all. What are the types of immunity, like innate immunity, adaptive immunity, cellular immunity, humoral immunity, and all. So I am not going to discuss it in detail. And also in your book, in OPGHI, it is given very nicely, so you can go and read it in your books, in your book. Okay. So next is immunization. Okay. So immunization is the process of administration of all or a part of pathogen or preformed antibodies to elicit an immune response that protects an individual from the disease. Okay. So here you can see that it is administration of all or part of pathogen or preformed antibodies. So as you all know that immunization is of two types. One is active immunization and one is passive immunization. So in active immunization, we give a antigen to the person, and that person develops antibody against that antigen, and in future that antibody protects that individual from the natural infection. Okay, that is called as active immunization. Whereas in passive immunization, we administer some preformed antibodies to the individual, and these preformed antibodies help the individual to protect the individual from the actual infection. Okay, so immunity or immunization can be of two types. One is active immunization or active immunity, and next is another is passive immunity or passive immunization. Okay, so active immunization is produced actively by host immune system, whereas passive immunity is received passively and no active participation of host immune system. Okay, so preformed antibody is given to the host. Okay, and active immunity is induced by infection or immunogen, that is vaccine, whereas passive immunity is conferred by administration of ready-made antibodies. So nowadays, due to this corona pandemic, everyone is like very eagerly waiting for vaccines, like corona vaccine and plasma therapy. Like these words are very commonly used nowadays: vaccine, plasma therapy, and all. So the vaccine is a part of active immunity, whereas plasma therapy is a part of a way of conferring passive immunity. Okay. आजकल देख रहे हो हर जगह the persons who are getting recovered from COVID-19 are being requested to donate plasma, okay, for plasma therapy. So those who are not able to produce antibody or those who are having serious infections, they are being given plasma from the persons who have recovered from COVID-19. That is called as plasma therapy. So what is the concept? What is the basics of that plasma therapy? So in plasma therapy, we extract the plasma. Plasma means not exactly plasma. We require the antibody. Okay. So if a person who was infected with a virus, any virus, say coronavirus, so and now that person has recovered, that means that person has developed antibody against the virus, and that is why the antibody which is formed in the plasma of that person has helped that person to fight or to eliminate or to neutralize the virus, and now the person is now the person has recovered from the virus. So that person now contains antibody against coronavirus. Okay. So there is another person who is now having active disease and who is having severe symptom. Okay. So what we do in plasma transfusion, we extract the plasma that contains the antibody against the coronavirus, because the antibodies are present in plasma. Okay, so we extract the plasma of the person who has recovered from the disease, and we give that plasma containing the antibody to a person who is having severe symptoms, so that the antibody of the person who has recovered helps the person who is severely ill to fight against the coronavirus. And this is an example of passive immunity. So we are giving preformed antibody to that person to fight against the virus. Okay, that is passive immunity. Okay, whereas corona vaccine or any vaccine is a example of active immunity. We give vaccine means we give antigen, and that person produces antibody against that antigen, and in future that those antibodies help that person to prevent natural infection by that wild virus or bacteria. Okay, so there are other differences in active immunization and passive immunization. Like active immunization is long lasting and has effective protection, whereas passive immunity is short term and less effective. It has less effective protection. Okay, immunity. The immunological memory is present in active immunization, whereas it is not present in passive immunity. Okay, and you cannot immunize usually a immunodeficient person. Normally you cannot immunize a immunodeficient person, and even if you immunize a immunodeficient person, that person cannot make that amount of antibody. Okay, whereas you can passively immunize even a immunodeficient person. Okay, so these are the basic difference between active immunization and passive immunization. Okay, now another very common term used nowadays, that is herd immunity. Okay, so what is herd immunity? So herd immunity is resistance to spread of infectious disease in a group because of large number of resistant or immunized members making the transmission unlikely. Okay, and herd immunity refers to the immunologic status of a population, not a individual. Okay, and it is determined by the ratio of resistant to susceptible members and their distribution. Okay, so to explain this, like say there are 100 people in a group, and 80% of the individuals are immune to the like disease. Okay, 80% of individuals are immunized. Okay, then what will happen? Those 80 individuals are like immune to the disease, but rest 20 individuals are susceptible to the disease. But as the 80% individuals are immunized, they will not transmit the disease from one person to another, and hence the rest 20 people who are susceptible will be protected from the disease. Okay, so this is the like basics of herd immunity. Okay, so in the next slide, I think you can understand it better. So you look at the picture on the left side. Okay, so there are three color codes are used to identify different type of individuals. So the person who are in red, okay, they are infected individuals, or those who are having the disease. Okay, or those who are having those who are contagious, or those who are infected. Okay, so in this picture you can see that this person is in red color, is the infectious one. So this person has the disease or the infection. Okay, and the persons who are yellow marked in yellow color, these persons are having are immunized person. Okay, are vaccinated to that particular against that particular immunizing I mean pathogen. Okay, or disease. Okay, so these individuals who are in yellow color, they are immunized against the disease, whereas the persons who are like in blue, they are healthy individuals, but they are not immunized. That means they are susceptible individual. Okay, so if this is the scenario, then what will happen over a period of time, the persons who are susceptible will get infected from this individual. Okay, they will receive infection, or they will get infected from this individual. This individual will spread the infection to these susceptible healthy individuals over a period of time, as you can see. And almost all the individuals will get infected, except the individuals who are vaccinated or immunized. Okay, so as you can see here, only one person was infected, but after some time, all the individuals get infected, except for few. Okay, I mean most of the individuals get infected. Okay. So this is the scenario when only very few people are immunized and most people are susceptible. Okay, now we come to the right side. In this scenario, you can see that one person is infected in the middle, but most of the persons are immunized and they are like protected from disease. Only few persons, like 1 to 3 persons, are susceptible. Okay, they are not immunized. So what will happen? These persons, those persons who are immune, or those who are immunized, will help prevent the disease, will help to prevent this susceptible individual from getting the disease by preventing the transmission. Okay, these individuals, as they are immunized, they will not be infected, and as they will not be infected, they will not transmit the disease, and hence these individuals who are susceptible, these three individuals who are susceptible, will not get the disease. Okay, and hence you can see that over a period of time, only one person is getting infected. Okay, and most of the patients are not getting infected. So this is the basics of herd immunity. Okay, so if most of the individual of a group or a population are immunized, and most of the patients are immune to a particular infection, then rest of the people who are susceptible, they will also not get the disease. Okay, they will also protected from the disease. Okay, so that is the concept of herd immunity. Okay. Now, what is a vaccine? So vaccine is preparation of a weakened or killed pathogen, such as a bacterium or a virus, or a portion of the pathogen structure that, upon administration, stimulates antibody production or cellular immunity against the pathogen but is not capable of causing severe infection. Okay, so we give a killed or weakened pathogen to the person, and the immunity of that person makes antibody against that antigen. Okay, and this pathogen is weakened or killed so that it will not produce actual disease. It will just produce immunity, but it will not produce disease. Okay, so that is called vaccine. And vaccination is administration of antigenic material, that is vaccine, to produce immunity to a disease. So administration of vaccine is vaccination. Okay. Now there are various type of vaccines depending upon their composition and all, like live attenuated vaccines, inactivated or killed vaccines, toxoid vaccines, cellular fraction or subunit vaccines like conjugate vaccines, cellular vaccines. The newer vaccines like DNA vaccines, recombinant vector vaccines, and combination vaccines. Okay, so we will discuss one by one in short. So coming to live attenuated vaccines. So live attenuated vaccines are prepared from live, generally attenuated. That means their pathogenicity is suppressed. Okay, their like virulence is suppressed. Okay, and the organisms lost the pathogenicity or virulence, but retain the immunogenicity due to repeated culturing. Okay, due to repeated culturing, they lost their pathogenicity, but they retain their immunogenicity. Okay, so live attenuated vaccines are more potent than other vaccines like inactivated vaccine or toxoid vaccines. Okay, because the resultant antigenic dose is higher and sustained, and it contains all major and minor antigenic components of the organism, and it engages body tissues causing persistent immune response. Okay, and viral live vaccines provoke excellent immune response. It has been seen that mainly viral vaccines and live vaccines provoke more immune response than inactivated or killed vaccines. Okay, and for that reason only, immunization with live attenuated vaccines usually require a single dose. Okay, they do not usually require a booster dose, although there are some exceptions like polio vaccine, oral polio vaccines, but usually live attenuated vaccines are given in a single dose. They do not require booster dose. Okay, they are sufficient to produce immunity in single dose. Okay, because their immunogenicity is higher, they are more potent. Okay, so some examples of live vaccines include measles vaccine, mumps vaccines, BCG, influenza, rubella, and OPV. Okay, and the contraindication is to live attenuated vaccines are immunocompromised state. Okay, due to like if the person is receiving any immunosuppressive agent like corticosteroids or any like any chemotherapeutic agent, or if the patient has active symptomatic HIV infection, then in those persons live attenuated vaccines should not be given for two reasons. Okay, first reason is that as these are live attenuated vaccines, as these are live organisms are present, and this person is immunocompromised, so there is chance that this vaccine can cause severe disease in that person, severe infection in that person, because the immunity is less in that person. Okay. Second thing is, as the immunity is less in this person, they are immunocompromised, so they cannot produce that amount of immunity that is required after vaccination. Okay. And also in pregnancy, live attenuated vaccines are contraindicated. Okay. Next is inactivated or killed vaccines. So in this, organisms are killed by heat or by chemical method and are injected into the body. They are usually safe because they are inactivated and killed. They are not live vaccines. They do not contain live organisms, so they are usually safe. And they require adjuvants. Okay, adjuvants are substances which are added to a vaccine and which helps in increasing the immunogenicity. Okay, because these inactivated vaccines and killed vaccines have less immunogenicity, so adjuvants are added to increase the immunogenicity. Okay, but inactivated vaccines are less efficacious than live vaccine. Okay, so live vaccines are more efficacious than inactivated vaccines in general, and hence these inactivated vaccines require booster doses to maintain a steady antibody level. Okay, from time to time they require booster doses, or else the protective level will decrease, the antibody level will decrease if you do not give booster doses. Okay, So some examples include JE vaccine, rabies vaccine, hepatitis B vaccine, and inactivated polio vaccine. Okay. Contraindications to IPV inactivated polio vaccine are severe local or generalized reaction in previous dose. Okay. Next is toxoid vaccines. So toxoid vaccines are the toxins produced by organisms are detoxicated and used in preparation of vaccine. Okay. So there are some organisms, like in my last class I discussed about tetanus. Okay. So thus Clostridium tetani, the organism, when a person is infected with that bacteria, the bacteria do not cause symptoms by itself. Okay. But it is the toxoid that is produced by the bacteria, that is tetanospasmin and tetanolysin, that cause the actual symptom. Okay, we have discussed in my last class. So in these cases like tetanus and diphtheria, in which the symptoms are due to toxoid, so in these cases the toxins produced by these organisms are detoxified and used in the preparation of vaccine. So due to they are detoxified, so these toxins, the toxicity is lost, but the antigenicity or immunogenicity is retained. Okay. And antibodies are produced to neutralize the toxin rather than act upon the organism. So when we give administer toxoid vaccines, then antibodies are produced against that toxoid, not against the organism. Okay. So when actual infection occurs, these antibodies will neutralize the toxins produced by the organism. Okay, they will not act against the organism, but they will act against the toxoid produced against the organism. Okay. So examples are your diphtheria toxin and tetanus toxoid. Okay, diphtheria toxoid and tetanus toxoid. Okay. Next are subunit vaccines or cellular fractions. These can be conjugate vaccines or acellular vaccines. Okay. So conjugate vaccines are prepared from pieces of coats of bacteria and are linked to carrier protein which cause immune response. So instead of the whole virus or whole bacteria, some portions or some pieces from the outer surface of the organism are removed and linked to a carrier protein and administered into the person, and this causes an immune response. Okay. So example of conjugate vaccine is HIB, that is Haemophilus influenza B vaccine. Okay. Next is acellular vaccine. Acellular vaccine contains cellular material but not the complete cell. Here also only some like component of the cell is administered, not the whole cell. Okay. Only those antigens or epitopes that evoke best immune response are selected and administered. Okay, not the whole cell. So the example is acellular pertussis vaccine. Okay, we will discuss about acellular pertussis vaccine and whole cell pertussis vaccine in coming slides. Okay. Next are combination vaccines. Combination vaccine means when more than one vaccines are combined together, okay, and administered in one dose or one injection, that is called as combination vaccines, like DPT, MMR. Nowadays we are using pentavalent and hexavalent vaccines. So in DPT we combine diphtheria, pertussis and tetanus vaccine, okay, in one injection. So in one injection you give 3 vaccines. So it is like it simplifies the administration and reduces the cost. Okay. In MMR vaccine we combine measles, mumps and rubella vaccine in one vaccine. Okay. So in one dose you immunize against 3 diseases. Okay. Nowadays we are using pentavalent. In pentavalent we use like DPT, diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, then HIB, that is Haemophilus influenza B and hepatitis B. So pentavalent contains 5 vaccines in one vaccine. Okay. And nowadays there are also hexavalent vaccines are coming that contains apart from this pentavalent, that contains inactivated polio vaccine. Okay. So 6 vaccines in one go. Okay, in one injection you administered 6 vaccines. Okay, so these are called as combination vaccines. So these are some types of vaccination, like vaccines. You need to know what are the types of vaccines. Okay. Now we will discuss some individual vaccines which are commonly used in pediatric practice. Okay. So first come to BCG vaccine. Okay, BCG vaccine is used to protect an individual against severe form of tuberculosis usually. Okay. So BCG is a live attenuated vaccine in lyophilized or freeze dried powder form in a vacuum sealed dark multi-dose vial. Okay. So BCG is a live attenuated vaccine. Okay. And it is in powder form. Okay, lyophilized or powder form, and the vial is multi-dose vial. That means in one vial you can immunize around 10 to 20 children. Okay, so it contains multiple doses. You can immunize multiple persons from one vial. That is called as multi-dose vial. Okay, and the strain used in BCG vaccine in India is Danish 1331. Okay, this is the strain used for preparation of BCG vaccine. And for administration of BCG vaccine, intradermal route, it is administered via intradermal route. The dose of the vaccine is 0.1 ml and 0.05 ml for newborn babies, that is before 1 month of age. And after 1 month of age, the dose is 0.1 ml intradermal. Okay, the route is intradermal. And the site is left upper arm at insertion of deltoid. So this is important. Okay, so site of immunization of BCG is important. That is left upper arm at insertion of deltoid. So you have to remember left upper arm. The reason is for easy identification or universal identification. Okay, BCG is always given on the left upper arm. Okay, the reason is, so if you want to know immunization status of an adult or any person, adult person, then just you have to look at the for the scar on the left deltoid region or left upper arm. Okay, you just look at the left upper arm, and by looking at the left upper arm, you can say that whether the person was immunized with BCG vaccine in the infancy or not. Because as you all know that if BCG vaccine is given properly, then it produces a permanent scar in the region in which it is given. Okay, and that scar is permanent. That means it lasts lifelong. Okay, so any person who is immunized and properly immunized by BCG vaccine in the infancy must have a scar in the left upper arm. You can check yourself. Okay, if you people are immunized, then you must be having a scar on your left deltoid region. Okay, that is BCG scar, and all the individuals who are immunized properly and who are actually immunized have the scar. Okay, so initially when BCG vaccine is given, a whale is formed. As you know that it is given intradermally. So after administration of the vaccine, after few hours, a whale is formed, round whale is formed, and within 1 week that whale is gets converted to a papule. Okay, that papule then again get converted to vesicle, and then finally it ulcerates at around 5 to 6 weeks after the vaccination. Then after ulceration, it forms a permanent scar after around 9 to 12 weeks after the vaccination, and this permanent scar remains lifelong. Okay, and this is the reason that BCG vaccine should be given only at a particular site, that is left upper arm. Okay, for easy identification, to identify that whether the person has received vaccination in the childhood or not. Okay, and as you have seen that as this vaccine is available in dried form, so we need a diluent to dilute it. Okay, for administration, to make before giving immunizing, we have to convert it in a liquid form. So we need a diluent, and the diluent is sterile normal saline. So the diluent is already available with the vaccine. Okay, so sometimes it is asked, so what is the diluent used with BCG vaccine, and what is the diluent used with measles vaccine? So the diluent used with BCG vaccine is sterile normal saline, whereas the diluent used with measles vaccine is your distilled water. Okay, and the schedule of BCG vaccine is in universal immunization schedule. and both IP immunization schedule, it should be given at birth. Okay, but in universal immunization schedule, it should not be given after 1 year. Okay, but IIP recommends that it can be given up to 5 years. Okay. So BCG vaccine should be stored at 2 to 8 degrees Celsius for 1 year. It can be stored for 1 year at 2 to 8 degrees Celsius, but once it is reconstituted, it should be used within 4 hours. Okay, so once normal saline is added to it, you have to use the vaccine within 4 hours, and if it is not used, you should discard it. You should not use after 4 hours of reconstitution. Okay. So some adverse effects of BCG vaccine, though rare, are local ulceration, axillary lymphadenopathy, disseminated infection, osteomyelitis, discharging sinus. Though these adverse effects are very rare. Okay. And contraindication is immunodeficiency and symptomatic HIV, because as you know, this is a live vaccine, so you should avoid this vaccine in immunocompromised persons. Okay. Now we discussed that when properly immunized, a scar is formed. Okay, a permanent scar is formed in all the individuals. So what to do if no scar develops after vaccination? So if scar does not develop, that means either the person is not immunized or that person is not immunized properly. Okay. In that case, earlier it was recommended that if a person does not develop scar after immunization, then after 3 months or 6 months you have to do a Montux test, and if the Montux test is negative, then you have to repeat the BCG vaccination. Okay, this was the earlier recommendation, but the recent recommendation is, even if the person does not develop scar, you should not revaccinate. Only 1 dose given at birth. Okay, it doesn't matter whether the person developed a scar or not. You should not give repeat dose. Okay, this is the recent recommendation. Okay, and the efficacy of BCG vaccine is 80% in neurotuberculosis and miliary tuberculosis. Neurotuberculosis means tubercular meningitis or your tuberculoma and all, and miliary tuberculosis, and the protective efficacy in pulmonary tuberculosis is only 50%. Okay, I mean the efficacy is 50% in preventing pulmonary tuberculosis. Okay. Next is your polio vaccine. Okay, so as you know that there are 2 types of polio vaccine. One is oral polio vaccine, and another is inactivated polio vaccine, that is IPV. So we will discuss one by one. So oral polio vaccine is live attenuated drug containing 10 to the power 5 to 10 to the power 6 infectious doses of each serotype, that is serotype 1, 2 and 3 per dose. It is 2 drops. So as you know, the dose of oral polio vaccine is 2 drops. Okay. So each dose or each 2 drops contains 10 to the power 5 to 10 to the power 6 infectious doses of each serotype 1, 2, 3. Okay. Actually, there are three types of OPV vaccine available. One is trivalent. In trivalent, actually three serotypes are present. Whereas in bivalent vaccines, only serotype 1 and 3 is present, and in monovalent vaccines, either serotype 1 or serotype 3 is present. Okay. But presently, the vaccine that is in the OPV that is in use is bivalent vaccine that contains serotype 1 and serotype 3. Okay, so serotype 2 is being eliminated from the OPV. We will discuss why. And OPV contains magnesium chloride as stabilizing agent. Again, this is asked in your, sometimes in your exam, that what is the stabilizing agent present in OPV. Okay, that is magnesium chloride. The schedule in National Immunization Program is 1 dose at birth, that is called as 0 dose, or within 15 days of birth. Okay. Then 3 doses, primary doses at 6 week, 10 week and 14 weeks. Then booster doses, one at either 15 to 18 months and next is at 5 years. Okay. So 1 0 dose, birth dose, then 3 primary dose and 2 booster doses. Okay. This is in Universal Immunization Program or National Immunization Schedule, whereas IAP recommends OPV at 0, 6, 9 months and 5 years. Okay. And also IAP recommends administration of OPV on all national immunization days and SI age. Okay. So in all pulse polio immunization, IAP should be given. OPV can be stored up to 2 years at -20 degrees Celsius and up to 6 months at 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. Okay. The adverse effects, although rare but very serious, like VAPP, that is vaccine associated paralytic poliomyelitis, that is due to loss of attenuation of type 2 serotype 2. Okay. Although it is very rare, it is found in it is seen in only 1 per 1 million case, but it is very serious. Okay. So it is, as you can see, that it is caused by loss of attenuation of serotype 2, and that is the reason nowadays this serotype 2 is being removed from the oral polio vaccine. Okay. And bivalent vaccine is used. Okay. Containing one serotype 1 and 3. Okay. And another adverse effect is CVDPV, that is circulating vaccine derived poliovirus, that is due to mutation of OPV. Okay. Mutation of the virus present in the vaccine. Okay. And that is also due to type 2 virus. Okay. Type 2 serotype 2. Okay. So these are the adverse effect one can encounter after receiving oral polio vaccine. Okay. So the contraindication again in immunocompromised persons, as it is a live vaccine, it is contraindicated in immunocompromised person like immunodeficiency and symptomatic HIV. The seroconversion rate after 3 doses of OPV are highest for type 2, that is 90%, and lowest for serotype 3, that is 70%. Now comes the inactivated polio vaccine. Okay. So inactivated polio vaccine is contains formaldehyde killed poliovirus. Okay. So it contains killed poliovirus, and it induces mainly humoral immunity and possibly intestinal mucosal antibodies. So the oral polio vaccine, as it is given orally, it induces local immunity in the intestinal mucosa. Okay. Whereas inactivated polio vaccine, it induces mainly humoral immunity, and it may also induce intestinal mucosal antibodies. Okay. It contains 40D D antigen and 80D antigen, 32D antigen units of type 1, type 2 and type 3 serotype. So inactivated polio vaccine contains all the serotypes. Okay. And the site of administration is anterolateral side of thigh in intramuscular injection, or right upper arm for intradermal injection. So inactivated polio vaccine can be given either intramuscular, subcutaneous or intradermal. Okay. So if you are giving intradermal, then you should intramuscular, then anterolateral right side of thigh is the site, and if you are giving subcutaneous or intradermal, then you should give in the upper arm. Okay. And the dose is 0.5 ml for intramuscular and subcutaneous, whereas for intradermal it is 0.1 ml. Okay. It contains trace amount of streptomycin, neomycin and polymyxin. These are some antibiotics that inhibit bacterial growth. Okay. These antibiotics, this polio vaccine contains these antibiotics to inhibit bacterial growth or secondary contamination, to prevent secondary contamination. Okay. The schedule for inactivated polio vaccine in UIP is at 6 weeks and 14 weeks, 2 doses at 6 weeks and 14 weeks, and it is intradermal. Okay. Whereas IAP recommends 3 doses at 6 weeks, 10 weeks and 14 weeks, and a booster dose at 15 to 18 months. Okay. So initially, previously only OPV was used in your National Immunization Schedule or UIP, but after eradication of polio or elimination of polio, and India was declared polio free in 2014. After that, intradermal inactivated polio vaccine is used for sequential immunization. Okay, so we'll discuss it why. So for catch-up immunization, catch-up means if a person has not received a single dose of vaccination or has not received a proper dose of the vaccine, then you have to give 3 doses of vaccine at 0, 2 and 6 months. Okay, if the child is less than 5 years of age. Okay, it is stored at 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. Adverse effect includes local pain and swelling. Contraindication is known allergy to the vaccine, and the efficacy of the vaccine is around 90 to 95% with 2 doses and around 99% with 3 doses. Okay, so the efficacy is quite good. Okay. So what is the difference between, or what is the difference between OPV and IPV? So here is a chart comparing the OPV and IPV. So OPV is given orally, so it is easy for administration and mass campaigning, whereas IPV needs necessity of skilled person for injection, because IPV is given through injection either intramuscular, subcutaneous or intradermal, so it needs a skilled person. But OPV, just you give 2 drops to the child and the child will swallow, so it is very easy to give. Next is OPV produces high systemic immunity and high gut immunity, whereas IPV also produces high systemic immunity but very less gut immunity. Okay. And OPV has risk of VAPP and VDPV because it contains live vaccine. Okay. Mainly the trivalent vaccines, which contains type 2, serotype 2, whereas the IPV vaccines do not have the risk of this VAPP and VDPV. Okay. OPV is contraindicated in immunodeficiency state, whereas IPV is not contraindicated in immunodeficiency states. Okay. So these are the basic difference between OPV and IPV. Now, what is sequential schedule and future planning of polio vaccination? As you all know that the last case of polio was reported in India in January 2011. Okay. Since then it has been more than 9 years, but not a single case has been reported from India till now. Okay. Since 2011, the last case was reported in 2011. Okay. And in 2014, WHO certified India as polio-free nation. Okay. Because India has stopped the transmission of polio in our nation. So India is being certified as polio-free nation since 2014. Okay. Now, still we are giving vaccine, polio vaccine. Why? Because it has been seen that if you stop vaccination, polio vaccination, the spread has stopped, but the virus may be remaining in different, like in the environment. And if you stop immunizing, then after a few years, many of the people will be lacking immunity against polio, and this virus, which is dormant, can cause active disease in those persons. That is the reason we should keep immunizing the children. Okay. So now, what is sequential schedule? The IFP recommends the use of sequential IPV-OPV schedule, which shall enable the implementation of an exclusive IPV schedule in the future. So as you have seen that OPV, that the VAPP or that vaccine-associated paralytic polio and vaccine-derived polio virus is mainly due to OPV because they contain live vaccine. So as polio is already eliminated in our country, transmission eliminated, so we have to also see the risk of developing VAPP and VP from the oral polio vaccine. So we have to shift to inactivated polio vaccine, okay, and gradually stop the OPV, okay, and that is the reason of sequential schedule, development of sequential schedule of immunization, okay. The advantage of administering IPV and OPV in sequence is that the risk of OPV-induced VAPP is minimized by prior IPV, while ensuring that adequate mucosal immunity interrupts wild poliovirus circulation. Okay. And there is a term or strategy called as polio endgame strategy, which was developed by GPEI. It is Global Polio Eradication Initiative. Okay, Global Polio Eradication Initiative. So this polio endgame strategy was developed by GPEI, and this is to manage the post-eradication risk due to OPV, that is VAPP and VDPV. Okay, and this is supported by WHO and UNICEF. So the strategy strategy in this polio endgame is to strengthen the routine immunization and withdrawal of the OPV to eliminate the risk of VDPP and replace with IPV. Okay, and strong routine immunization program will be critical for this purpose. Okay. Now comes the diphtheria vaccine. Okay. So diphtheria vaccine is a toxoid vaccine. So it contains diphtheria toxin inactivated by formalin. The quantity of toxoid contained in the vaccine is expressed as limit of flocculation, that is LF. Okay. So if it is DT, okay, if the diphtheria toxin is represented by a capital T, that means it contains 25 limit of flocculation, and if it is represented by small d, that means it contains 2 limit of flocculation. Okay. This diphtheria toxo vaccine comes in liquid vial and in combination with tetanus and pertussis vaccine. Okay, DPT, diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus. It comes in combination vaccines and in liquid form. Okay, and the adjuvant used in this DPT vaccine is aluminum hydroxide. Okay, this adjuvant increases the immunogenicity of the vaccine. The site of administration of DPT vaccine or diphtheria vaccine is anterolateral side or the anterolateral side of the mid thigh or deltoid region in older children. It is given intramuscularly and the dose is 0.5 ml. Okay. The schedule of DPT or diphtheria vaccine is in universal immunization schedule. It is at 6 week, 10 week and 14 week, and booster at 15 to 18 months and at 5 years. Okay, and in IAP it is also at 6 week, 10 week, 14 week, and booster dose at 15 to 18 months and 5 years, and Tdap or DT at 10 years and TD every 10 years. So Tdap means, as you can see DTWP, that means it contains tetanus toxoid and diphtheria toxoids in 25 limit of flocculation and whole cell pertussis vaccine. So DTWP means it contains whole cell pertussis vaccine. Whereas you can see TDAP, that means it contains tetanus toxoid and diphtheria with 2 limit of flocculation. Okay, the quantity of the pathogen is decreased, so it is small d. Okay, and AP means acellular pertussis. So TDAP means it is contains acellular pertussis and small amount of diphtheria vaccine. Okay, and TD means it contains only diphtheria and tetanus vaccine. Okay. So in catch-up immunization, catch-up means if a person has not received DPT immunization previously, and if the child is less than 7 years, then DTWP should be given at 0, 1 and 6 months, and if the child is more than 7 years, then Tdap should be given at 0 month, then TD should be given at 1 month and 6 months. Okay. So this is the immunization schedule of DPT. The storage of diphtheria vaccine or DPT vaccine is at 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. It is very sensitive to light, so you should protect it from the light. The adverse reactions include local pain and swelling, fever. The efficacy after primary immunization with three doses gives 95% to 100% protection against DT and TT, and against pertussis it gives 70 to 90% protection. Okay. Booster doses of diphtheria need to achieve antibody titer of 0.1. Booster doses of diphtheria is given to achieve antibody titer of 0.1 international unit per ml. Okay. Next is your pertussis vaccine. So pertussis vaccine, as you have discussed, comes in combination with other vaccines like tetanus and diphtheria vaccines. So in DTWP and DTAP. So DTWP is contains whole cell pertussis vaccine, whereas DTAP contains acellular pertussis vaccine. Okay. So WP means whole cell, and it is based on Bordetella pertussis organisms, whereas acellular vaccine is based on highly purified selected component of the agent. Okay. WP is more immunogenic, but it has more side effects. Okay. It is more immunogenic, has more side effects, but is cheaper and used in children up to 7 years of age. Whereas AP is less, like acellular pertussis is less immunogenic, but also has less side effects. Okay, and it is costly, and it is used in children more than 7 years of age, because the incidence of like pertussis declines over by age. So after 7 years of age, incidence of or prevalence of pertussis is very less. That is why we have to give acellular pertussis so as to minimize the side effect. Okay, and immunogenicity is not much required because incidence is less, and incidence is more in children less than 7 years. So you have to give a vaccine which is more antigenic or more immunogenic. That is why we give whole cell pertussis, although it has more side effects. Okay. The adverse reactions include local pain, swelling, and fever. Contraindications include progressive neurological diseases, anaphylaxis after previous dose, or encephalopathy with 7 days within 7 days of previous dose. So the severe pertussis, a person receiving whole cell pertussis can develop severe reactions like progressive neurological disease, anaphylaxis, and encephalopathy. Okay. And if a person develops this type of reaction in previous dose, then next dose should be avoided with whole cell pertussis, and instead acellular pertussis should be given. Okay. Precautions for giving pertussis vaccine include previous dose associated with fever of more than 40.5 degrees Celsius within 48 hours of vaccination, or persistent inconsolable cry for more than 3 hours within 48 hours of vaccination, and seizure within 72 hours of vaccination. Okay, so if a child develops these symptoms after immunization, then you should take due precaution while giving next vaccination. Okay, with this vaccine. Okay. Next is your tetanus vaccine. So again, it is a toxoid vaccine. So it is a heat-stable toxoid vaccine inactivated by formalin and absorbed into aluminum salt to enhance its immunogenicity. So aluminum salt is used as adjuvant to enhance the immunogenicity. Okay. Each dose of TT vaccine contains 5 population limit of toxoid, and it is administered with DT and pertussis, as you have seen in DPT vaccine. Efficacy of TT vaccine varies with between 80% to 100%, and an antitoxin level of 0.01 unit per ml is considered as protective. All the pregnant women should be immunized with 2 doses of TT vaccine, and the second dose should be given at least 2 weeks prior to the delivery, and this is to prevent neonatal and maternal tetanus. Okay. And as you have discussed in my last class, that by this regular immunization of pregnant women with these 2 TT doses, India has eliminated maternal and neonatal tetanus. Okay. So next is tetanus prophylaxis following wound. So you might have seen कि if anyone gets injured by anything, even a minor cut, they come to you for TT, बोलते हैं कि TT दे दो हमको, ठीक है, इंजरी हो गया है. So you get many patients like either road traffic accident or even minor injury, they are coming to you for TT vaccination, okay, or tetanus prophylaxis. So what is the recommendation? So when you have to give, in which condition you have to give tetanus prophylaxis, and in which condition you don't have to give. Okay. So for that you have to first classify and see that whether the wound is clean, whether the wound is clean minor wound, whether it is clean minor wound or it is contaminated wound. Okay, so if the person has suffered a road traffic accident and he has severe wound which is contaminated with soil, dust, mud and all, that means that is contaminated wound. And if a person has small minor cut with a needle, with a scissor or a knife, that means that is clean minor wound. So if it is a clean minor wound, then again you have to look for the you have to inquire for the immunization status of the individual. Okay, so if the person the immunization status of that individual is not known, or the person has received less than 3 doses of tetanus toxoid in the past, then and the person has clean, even the person has clean minor wound, then that person should be given TT, tetanus toxoid vaccination. Okay, but the person should not be given TIG, as it is a clean minor wound, so very less risk of developing tetanus. So TIG should not be given. TIG is tetanus immunoglobulin. Okay, it is passive immunization. So TIG should not be given in clean minor wound. Okay, and if that person has clean minor wound, and if that person has received more than 3 doses in the past, then neither TT vaccine nor TIG should be given to the person. Okay. Now the person is having contaminated wound. Okay, then and if the person's immunization status is not known, or the person has received less than 3 doses in the past, then the person should receive TT immunization as well as tetanus immunoglobulin. Okay, a person whose immunization status is not known and having contaminated wound should receive both TT as well as TIG. Okay, and the dose of TIG is 250 international unit intramuscular. Okay, and if the person is previously immunized for 3 or more doses, then the person should neither receive TT vaccine or nor received should not receive TIG. Okay, so this is the recommendation for prophylaxis following a wound. Okay, so I think it's already 11:10. So I think we'll discuss the rest of the vaccines in my next class. Okay, because I think we have a ENT class right now. So we will discuss the rest of the vaccines like MMR vaccines. There are lots of vaccines remaining. So we will discuss all these vaccines in my next class. Okay. So thank you all for today, and have a good day.